Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. You get myself. My name's Rich. Find me on all the socials at rich.piver, doing reviews for Musipedia Of Metal as a Doom Charts contributor, and occasionally on X now at Fuzz Doom Rip. I'm excited to have my partner Turbo with me. Turbo, what's going on?
I am here once again.
Excellent. That's all we can ask for. We're excited to have Chris from the band Bygone on with us. And Bygone is a band that, if you go back in 2003-ish, right?
2022.
2022. This demo dropped, and lucky enough to have grabbed one of the cassettes, and the songs on it just kind of blew me away. And I think we were excited to hear what was next. But I'm not sure that I expected how awesome the new Bygone record is. And I want to just welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely. So, looking at the demo here, and for those who don't know, the new Bygone record comes out. We're recording this on Thursday. Comes out tomorrow. My goal is that everyone's listening to this on the day it comes out, which would be Friday, the 12th. And I finished my review up of the record today, and I actually gave it a 10 out of 10. That's how much I love it. I know you're laughing and you're glad people care. It friggin' blew me away. So first off, you play guitar, correct? You're the guitarist of the band, and
Yeah.
were you involved in writing all of the songs as well?
Yeah. It was like kind of an interesting process because I started writing the riffs like in 2020, and it was like lockdown times, and I was in school doing a master's degree in teaching, and so I ended up living with my parents for about a year while I was sort of waiting out being able to finish the degree and get a job. And I couldn't student teach at that time because of all the mandates and everything. So yeah, I was writing, and I was pretty far from where everybody in the band was, and I was sending music back and forth with Renato, who's the keyboard player, and I was working. The drummer that played on the demo was living near where my family's from. So all this sort of like space age, you send it back and forth on the computer stuff. And so the riffs started with me, but then gradually, like as I would bring more people in, they were like adding a lot of pieces. Renato wrote all the keyboard stuff, and when I approached Jim to sing, all the melodies were his. And so like it wasn't like we were all able to sweat it out in the room together, but gradually everybody started bringing in pieces, and I started to get to know Cecilia, who played bass, and she sort of had her own spin on a lot of it, and it just started layering on, like one person at a time. The last guy that we brought in was Noah, who is the other guitar player, and I was like, well, maybe you could just write a couple solos to go along with stuff. But then he started contributing some other stuff, little harmonizations and flourishes, so that the two guitarists could sort of work together a little more. And so I guess like a lot of all the songs started with me, but yeah, I don't want to take sole credit because I really believe that everybody was contributing little by little to it.
Very cool. Have you guys been in the same room together then? Has that ever happened as a band?
That's a good question. Yeah. For like a year, suddenly, like the whole band was Boston based except Jim, who was playing or who's singing. And then like suddenly everybody's lives sort of took them to different places, and like a couple people were in New York. One person was like ice climbing around the world. One person moved about an hour from here, and now there's a couple of us that are in Boston. Everybody else is everywhere else, and so it's sort of it's definitely a jigsaw puzzle as far as membership and locations now. But we actually had a lot of live practices together for about a year and a half.
That's awesome. the sound to me is just perfect. And you said Renato. Renato's the keyboard player.
Yes, he
Wow.
is.
But between what you do with the guitar and how that pairs with the keyboards, it's just amazing stuff. Have you worked with him in the past? Is that because I know looking at your bio, there's not a ton out there about you guys, but looking at the bio, it said you guys have come from other bands and played, in various other bands. Have you played with these guys or specifically Renato before in the past?
Yeah, we played together. I was in this band called Magic Circle, and he joined us on our third record as second guitar player. But really soon, it became evident that he was like this very talented multi instrumentalist. So, like on when I started doing stuff with him, he was doing contributing like 12-string guitar and
Oh wow.
keys. Uh, and he's done some film scoring stuff where he just plays like all this like very wide array of instruments, and actually a lot of acoustic instruments, and not just like synth based scoring. And so when I started, that band sort of ran its course, and when I started putting this together, it just kind of seemed natural. I was like, "Do you think you could do anything with a couple of these song ideas I have?" And he started sending me things, and I was just like, "Oh, this is a lot more than I was even expecting." And that really, then it really took a turn where it was like the keys were almost like more the focus than the guitars in a lot of places. They kind of like bob and weave through the songs, I think.
Yeah, it's way proggier than you think it's going to be when you start to listen to it, and that's a compliment. That
Thank you.
it's definitely that could be taken a few different ways, I think. But the way I'm putting it is absolutely a compliment. Turbo, you and I have talked a lot about this record. We've had it for a little while, luckily. What questions do you have for Chris?
A couple as far as the who wrote the copy on Bandcamp? Who wrote y'all's bio?
I sort of I took a pass at it, and my partner, who I actually just asked to marry me, and she said yes.
Oh,
So I have to say
congratulations! Breaking
thank you.
news on the show.
Yeah. Um, she's a much better writer and a very good editor, so she sort of copy edited that for me, and then I sent it to the label, and they probably made a couple changes too. They have a publicist, so so that's the chain of command there.
So
Very
it makes
cool.
it seem like you all, and you probably are, but very influenced by late '70s Uriah Heep and UFO, which usually those albums don't get much recognition, but they're really good albums. And I'm glad somebody said, "Hey, check these."
Yeah, I tried to include a lot of little like little references in there. Yeah, like the John Lawton Uriah Heep stuff is like I really like the Lucifer's Friend first LP. He's just got such a really cool voice. And then a couple years after I had a copy of that, I found out that he replaced the guy who was singing on the first run of Heap records, and I was like, oh, I got to hear this. And I love Firefly, man. I don't know why that album isn't talked about that much. I know there's a couple of schmaltzy kind of, Wise Man is on there, and like
Yeah.
it's like a little thin, but like those songs like Hanging Tree, Been Away Too Long, Rolling On. It's kind of like I know I can see that like every guy doing like that kind of like early 70s rock heard the first Foreigner record and was like, this is the new way. We're doing this. And so they all tried to incorporate it into their sound. But those Heap records and a lot of bands that tried to incorporate that into their sound, it's not like a perfect one-to-one match. And so you get these really like kind of anomalous, like they could only happen at those times kind of records. And a lot of times that's just the stuff that I get attracted to, because it's so there's like all these idiosyncrasies that sort of like fell out of favor as fast as they came in. And so, yeah, I really, in particular, Firefly was a record that I thought about a lot when I was coming up with these songs. Yeah, and like the BOC stuff, where they're kind of like, they're coming out of Spectres and they're doing mirrors, and then like mirrors was like, I love pretty much every Blue Oyster Cult record, even the stuff without Albert. But they go in and they kind of like try and switch it up on Cultosaurus, and I really like the way that they're like still like basically just a hard rock band, but they're playing around with like a lot of like the prog sort of like textures, but it's not really prog, and that's kind of the way I would describe our stuff. Like I really like Black Sabbath Never Say Die. It's like a really like criminally underrated record, even by the band members, and so like
Yeah.
I sort of like, I like when bands take like the stuff that happened in like with the big explosion of prog bands, and sort of used some of the like ornamentation of that to put it on to like the more straightforward hard rock stuff. And I think that's kind of where we ended up on this actually. We don't have that like prog sophistication, but you can hear some of the parts in there. So thank you for saying that, Turbo. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever gotten to talk about Uriah Heep on this show before, and if I'm not mistaken, and also I find it interesting. I think Blue Oyster Cult has been mentioned, but not like after Spectres, right? Like it's mostly the stuff that comes before that. The only problem with those records, I love them. I'm a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan, and shout out to our buddy Rob who got me to understand how much I should love Blue Oyster Cult. Like the thing with like Never Say Die and those BOC records, it just sounds a little tinny. Like the recording of it was just so, and you wanted to like have like a bite to it, and it just doesn't. Where I listen to your record, and obviously things are different today and how you record and stuff like that, but there's like this chunkiness to it that I think I yearn for in some of those records that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I engineered the record myself, and I was just really happy with the process all along the way. And I really do love the like the sort of tinniness that happens on some of those albums, like the Never Say Die guitars sound really small, although the drums sound really big to me on that record. And I think it's like an interesting dichotomy going on there. And sometimes I just like the sort of the rawness that comes out of like all of those bands were making those records in like a couple weeks or a couple months, just kind of like here and there in any studio that they could get time at. There's like a charm for me about that, because again, it doesn't taste like anything that you can taste now. So when I made this record, I mean, we started with the drums, and right off the bat, I was just like, oh, I really like this drum sound. We were in a room that I had never recorded in before, our drummer's practice space at the time. And it just like, it was immediately bigger than I was expecting it to be. And then it just felt really natural to like build on top of that. I recorded the guitars at my house in the attic, and got one complaint call. I left the window open, and as this cop showed up, and he was like, hey, it sounds like you're pretty good, but I think you got to turn it down, man. And I was like, yeah, sure. Left the window open. Sorry about that. And it was like terrible, because it was like one of those like just running the same riff over and over until it sounds right. So my neighbor must have heard 30 seconds of the record like 6,000 times. But yeah, I was really happy, because it does feel like a natural sound, and it does feel like there is some sort of, there's an edge to it. I don't really like having things sound too gridded up, too flattened out, too smooth. The guitars like squeak and squawk a little bit when I think they need to. You know, we like got some fuzz on the bass, which I think gives it a nice drive to get in there. Um, yeah, man, I really, it's one of my favorite things that I've ever been able to engineer. And and it wasn't done in like a traditional studio at all. It was really like going from place to place to get the different parts done.
I think the production on it is, I agree with you. I think it's perfect because you get it to make it sound like it's not from today in a way, right? But also like this rawness to it. It like sounds really tight, but also there's like a unique rawness to it that sounds like you guys, whether or not you kind of had your head over the board fixing this 1,000 times or not, it sounds like you didn't. It sounds like for a band that might not have been in the same studio recording it that you could have been. And I think that's a very cool thing to accomplish given the way that you guys probably put it together.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just think records sound better when they feel like uh, they feel alive. You know, you can feel like the tension of everybody trying to get it right, more so than going in and like microscopically fixing every little thing. And that's like a cliche to say, you know, like people, but it just, it's true. It works. People like, you know, if you like movies, you like practical effects. People like Rubber Monsters just look better, like a real guitar track that hasn't been time corrected down to the last nanosecond just feels better. And you know, vocals that aren't aren't pitch corrected usually sound better, at least for hard rock. You know, like I'm not gonna say that I understand like how every genre of music should sound, but like I do understand this one.
Yeah.
I know what's best.
I want to ask about the vocals, but Turbo, you ask. I usually dominate. So what else do you have for Chris before I ask about the
Well, I
vocals?
was curious before you explained how it was recorded. I was wondering if it was recorded in analog. And we've talked to a lot of bands who acquire old equipment from the 70s and 60s and stuff like that. And I was curious if you all get into that and have had some other equipment that's not from today that you were using on this album.
I think let me see if I can pan the camera.
Oh,
I did not
sure.
use this, but that is my 16 track, and
Nice.
it's half-inch reels, and I actually do a lot of work using that. I do a lot of because I work with other bands mixing, and I do a lot of punk stuff using that. It really like gives it that sort of, it just glues it together. And when I started this project, I was like, yeah, we're gonna do the drums on analog. And then sort of when I got what I got there, I was like, you know, I just don't think it needs it. I don't think it needs to be bounced down to analog because it was just feeling right. And so actually for this, not very much. My main guitar head, maybe you can also see it back there, is the 50-watt Marshall 2204. You know, and I don't know what it is about that one. I don't know the full sort of who had it first and how many hands it passed through, but it's my studio amp most of the time. It just it has something that most of the other Marshalls from that time that I've played don't have. It's just a little bit more out of control, and so I just don't have to do much, and it gets me there. And so that's like the real only like super vintage equipment that we use. Oh, and my guitar is from the 70s, but you know, like the pickups in it aren't original. So, you know, like a little bit, but not too much of the old stuff. I like it. If you can get it, it's great to have vintage equipment. I hate to be another guy like this, but like they just made stuff better like 50 years ago for the most part. You know, they made stuff so that when it broke, you could repair it, not just buy another one. And like that's why people still want cars from the 60s, and that's why people still want guitars from the 70s. And that's why like the boards the big studio boards that were built to be used in big studios like 40, 50, 60 years ago are still operating, because they are better. I do think that, but if you don't have access to that stuff, I think if you just take care and you're thoughtful about what you're doing, you can still get stuff that sounds great. And that's all I ever try and do is just work with the best circumstances that I can. So
Yeah, I mean, mission accomplished getting it to sound that way without that vintage equipment. Because I think if you would have asked Turbo and I would have been like, yeah, he's definitely got some old school machinery going on there.
When I listen to the album, it's like in my mind, if I'm trying to picture y'all playing, it's just like a stack of Marshalls behind you and everything, and y'all are just blowing us all away.
I mean, it was really cool that, we have like a promo photo where you can see all of us from a show we played with, all the amps and the keyboard rig and everything on stage, and we're like all across, and it looks awesome to me. But even that, we're only playing like half stacks or something. But I'm glad that it conjures that for you.
I get this. So Jim, I don't know if Jim, who sang all the vocals on this, I immediately, and this is again a compliment, I get a Paul Stanley vibe like immediately.
Oh.
I don't know if he gets that or you get that or anybody else gets that, but or he hates that maybe if you hear that. But I get that, and I also, again, a huge compliment. I don't have my Kiss sleeping bag that my great grandmother gave me in this room, but I'm a gigantic Kiss fan. So I'm like, holy shit, this would have been awesome. Like as the Elder, like this should have been the Elder, for crying out loud. Thoughts on Paul Stanley's name being mentioned to Jim in his vocals and or Kiss in general when you start
Rich,
thinking about this stuff?
Let's see, can you see the rug on the floor?
There we go. Okay. All right. Now we're talking.
The thing I got to tell you is that Jim actually played Ace in a cover band a few years back. So I have never thought of him as a Paul Stanley type, but I know that he's a Kiss enjoyer. I'm a Kiss enjoyer. What do you hear? What do you hear about Paul from when you're comparing him to Paul? Is it the delivery or?
It's when Paul goes to his low spots.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I hear. I don't hear the I don't hear like the the high
yeah.
I was made for loving you type stuff and things like that. But like when he's got his low range going and he's a little more like grimy in his delivery, that's what I hear from that. I don't know. I could be crazy. I also think that City Living sounds like Kiss too. Like that song to me is a Kiss song, like with amazing keyboards to go along with it. I don't know. Am I crazy or given your rug? I don't think I am being that crazy about it.
I could see it. Elder was actually an influence, I think, for me when I was coming up with the ideas for the songs. Especially, I know this is a weird one, but Only You is a song where it has a little bit of a mysteriousness that like I really hear in records made between like 79 and 81. And it's kind of the thing about those records is that there's a lot of people in a lot of bands that are making commercial records trying to figure out what the new sound of heavy metal is going to be, and they're trying a lot of different things. And by like 82, it's basically figured out, right? Like 1980, 81, you're getting like a lot of different styles of records that are hitting. You got like Heaven and Hell comes out. You have the Elder come out. Elder flopped, we all know, but you've got like those UFO records, like right when Schenker leaves, and then you got like Michael Schenker making records. You got like Ozzy making records, and then like by 1982, you got like British Steel, and then Point of Entry. By 1982, you get Screaming for Vengeance is a good example. It's like that's it. They figured it out. Like these are the things that people want. We know what people are not that into, and like this is the template for a lot of records that are going to come out for the rest of the decade. And that's cool, but I love hearing the shit that just like didn't really like fit in. And so I love the Elder. They're trying to make a harder sound, right? But they're also like they have all these like sort of like artistic aspirations that aren't really fully formed, and so you get weird songs like Under the Rose. Um, I and the Oath are obviously like really good, just like hard rocking songs. But within a year or two, they do the Killer stuff and they do Creatures of the Night, and it's sort of like they figured out like, okay, this is how we can be Kiss in the '80s. I've been accused of liking the records by bands that people like, but the records that they don't like, and
Oh,
I think I'm
welcome to yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you.
not beating those allegations today.
Yeah. We are two of a kind there because
We're Richard Turbo and we like obscure stuff.
Obscure and weird stuff that people don't like. I mean, I think I was defending Unmasked the other day. It was unfortunately, like when Ace passed, the Ace's songs on Unmasked are friggin' awesome. Like all
Those
of them.
Really good songs by him. Yeah, it's like a power pop record, right? Like it's like they must have seen that the bands that were getting signed around that time, like Cheap Trick had been really big, and then they're signing bands like the Knack and the Romantics, all of these kind of like more power pop things. The Tom Petty's like really taking off around that time. So they're like, all right, well, we kind of already do that. We're just gonna like do it a little more than we're gonna get rid of the disco stuff, but we're not gonna go back to the super bombastic, streamline it. But Ace is just kind of like natural as like a power popper, more so than like, I mean, I love Is That You? That's like a great kind of sleazy power pop song, but Ace's songs sound, like Torpedo Girl even is like, I really like those songs. Yeah, I think Unmasked is a great record. I get like why, it's hard for people to digest the Kiss records after Dynasty in general, right? Like we just know that like a lot of kids like lost interest after Dynasty. They moved on to other things. They went to college and everything, and it just wasn't the same thing that it was. But yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, man.
Thank you. We could do a whole show on the Elder. That would be wonderful, and how Lou Reed got involved with that, which is another whole thing because I'm a big Lou Reed fan too. So that's another
cool
discussion. Because I just love Velvet Underground into Lou because I feel like Lou was the king of just being able to do whatever he wanted, and the tone that he got on like the second Velvet's record, and like it's just stuff that's just candy to me. Anyway, Turbo, what else you got for Chris while we still have him?
Oh, well, to move off of that a little bit, the album cover. Who designed your album cover? And is that because I love the whole '70s look and style to it and
everything? I put the cover together, and I really like. I used some very small pictures that I enlarged off of some like sci-fi paperbacks and comic books. I can't reveal exactly where they came from because I didn't ask permission, but I really don't think anybody is going to notice. One is like a very minor comic book panel, like about the size of a postage stamp. One is from like a book on self-hypnosis, and it's got some kind of, so I was struggling to find something that would work. I talked to a couple people about maybe doing the art for it. I couldn't really nail anything down, and then I just started kind of, I got a lot of paper here, and I just started going through books and trying to find stuff that wouldn't be really obvious where it came from, but that might work, that might get the right flavor. And I like I like that era, that again at the end of the '70s, where people are kind of like thinking about sort of like fantasy and outer space, but like not in any kind of even remotely realistic way. I just it the way that the record sounds, I think it's kind of, an escapist, like you shut your eyes kind of album. And so I wanted to just like pair it with imagery that wasn't super specific to any one thing, but sort of like felt like something that wasn't material and like earthly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Is the name of the band kind of an ode to that era gone past that you're bringing back, or is this more of just a name you came up with? Is there something to it? Because I totally read into the name based on the way the record sounds, but I don't know if there was any connection there.
Well, Renato suggested it because I think in our deep researching of the internet, we couldn't find a band with that name. So, and and I was like, no, it makes sense. It works because it's a style, really like a subset of style that isn't coming back. And, I don't even know if there's really a big audience for it. And that's sort of, I don't think it has a lot of modern reference points. So it felt like it fit when the name came up. So, I guess you could say yes.
Very cool. That's the story you should go with when asked again about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could use that. Um, how did you wind up on Svart as a label? Because they're generally more, I guess, metal, using air quotes. But how did you connect with those guys? Was that from maybe bands you worked with before, or how did you get connected with those guys?
Yeah, at one point Magic Circle was supposed to do a record on Svart, and then it didn't work out just for various like timing reasons. It didn't happen. But I kept his contact, and I watched the label over the years. When they started, he was kind of like one of the first guys to really start reissuing a lot of the Finnish death metal stuff. And that I don't listen to as much death metal as I used to, but that was some of the stuff that I really loved, the early 90s Finnish bands. And I got in touch with him because he reissued the Abhorrence stuff. I don't even, I don't know if you guys are into death metal at all, but yeah, he did. There was a 7-inch and a demo by this band Abhorrence, and I happened to have a copy. I'm looking at it right now of their demo that had some extra stuff on it. They had sent it to a label, in the early 90s, and I got that copy, and it had some live stuff and some rehearsals. And so when I heard that he was working on that, I got in touch with him, and I was like, hey, if you need any of this stuff, let me know. And he ended up using a couple things. I can't remember. I don't even remember if it was live or rehearsal stuff, but somewhere on this like double LP is a few tape cuts that I had sent him. And so we just sort of kept in touch off and on, like every couple years. And I liked what he was doing. I liked that he started out doing that one thing, but then he started reissuing some interesting doom metal stuff. He did like Paul Chain, who I'm a huge fan of. He did some stuff for Pentagram, and then he started doing even like a wider range of stuff. Like he was doing like uh like Michael Monroe solo records and things that were really like niche. Where I was like, I don't even know like how he's getting these, but it's interesting. And he started doing Finnish punk records too, and he did like think he did Radis and maybe Ristitit and Varus and like all these sort of like really niche hardcore punk Finnish bands, which was really cool because those records are so expensive to get the originals and are often very partied on. And then he started doing like jazz reissues and like world music, and like I saw like he recently did a box set of like a dozen like Pentangle records, just. And I was like, this label is cool because it really is like such a wide range of music for like very niche nerds. And it seems like it doesn't seem like he's following a trend. And in the middle of all that, there were like all these current bands too, a lot of which I only was hearing of through the label. So I just kept an eye on it, and I really dug like how wide it got, because a lot of labels that start out doing one kind of metal only do that for the whole time. But it was clear to me that he was a fan of all this stuff. He worked with a sort of a doom death metal band, Skepticism, who are from Finland, who I are like really near and dear to my heart. And so I was always very, very into that. And so when Bygone did the demo, I reached out to a couple people. I reached out to the last label that Magic Circle was on, and he was like, "Hey, look, it's good, but like, I just put out this one kind of heavy metal." He had done a lot of death metal records after doing Magic Circle, and he was just kind of like, "The people that buy this stuff that I put out aren't going to buy this. Good luck." And I was like, there was like a big sort of resurgence of like 70s inspired heavy metal maybe like 10 years ago, and Magic Circle actually benefited from that a lot. We were in the right place at the right time, doing basically the right thing. But by the time I was doing the Bygone demo, like that stuff was just not popular anymore. And still, I don't know really how much room there is for this record, but Svart just seemed like a label where it was like, you can kind of try anything on this label. And he's got great distribution, super easy to work with. I've heard he employs a lot of people in like the punk and rock and roll scenes in Finland, which
cool.
I think is very cool. And it just seemed like a good one to try. So I reached out, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we were talking about your demo the other day. Yeah, let's do a record." And pretty much as simple as that. I think the only tough part was we took a little longer than I thought we would to finish the record. So, kind of held it up on our end. But yeah, it was just an easy fit. Simple as that.
Cool. Yeah, there's some good records that for people who listen to this show, like the Kaleidobolt just did a pre-order on Svart. Their stuff's really good. The Lunar Effect is another band that's really good. And they're not like you, but they definitely have those 70s vibes, just probably more towards the psych side of the house. But still just looking at the website now, it's just this one page I'm looking at is all over the place, which is pretty cool. I want to just ask about you for a second, because you mentioned that you've done mixing and you do work with different punk bands and use that rig behind you. Anything that we would know that you've worked on from a mixing standpoint, or anything you'd want to call out as some cool stuff that people should check out?
I'm trying to think. Let's see. I've done this year. I've been just doing a lot of demos for people, like really quick, kind of turn them around things. I'm gonna work with a band called Phantom Rider starting maybe next week. We're supposed to start drums, and they're doing an LP. I'm not sure who's putting it out yet, but they sound like old Slayer, like the first Slayer LP.
All right.
When they're still kind of in that more like traditional heavy metal zone, but they're edging out, and they're younger guys from up here where I live in Boston. I think it's going to be a fun one. So if you like that kind of like old Venom, Slayer, kind of like rockin' heavy metal, almost thrash, but not quite, it's going to be good.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Do we expect Bygone to be doing any live shows or anything on the horizon for you guys to do some either touring or just spot shows, or what does that look like?
I'm hoping that we can get at least a couple shows in this year, once the record's out and people can just kind of hear where it's all at. I still have everybody's phone number. Some people I see all the time and some people I haven't seen in a little while, but I think we could be pretty ready to play a show without too much notice. So I'm hoping we can just get out there and do a couple now that there's a record, and people can hear a little more of what the band's all about.
Awesome. Very cool. Turbo, anything else you have for Chris before we've already kept him longer than promised. So anything else you have for him?
Take as long as you want.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it talking to you, man. We could talk all day about a bunch of different bands.
Yeah, I
Just
think.
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, it's all you.
Just your this album is. I thought I had a lock on my debut albums this year, and I think this one might push the others out of the way. So I can't wait for everybody to hear this one, man. It's really
Yeah,
great.
it's a little for me. It wasn't, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a grower for people
Yeah,
as they, a couple spins in, it might click. For me, it clicked pretty quickly. Um, and to your point, you've said it a couple times that you're not sure like if there's space for this or people are going to dig it. I think that people are going to really, really dig it. Like, there's I think people yearn for this kind of sound, even though it's a sound from past, and you can pull out some of those old records and get kind of that vibe. But I don't think right this second there's anybody who sounds like Bygone, like somebody who's doing that kind of stuff now. So I absolutely think that there is space for this, and I think you might be pleasantly surprised at how much space there might be for a record like this. Have you shared this with anybody? Have you gotten any feedback on the record from people who might have heard it ahead of time?
Um, yeah, I mean, I played it for a couple friends, and friends are friends, so they're gonna tell you they like it. I saw a couple reviews, like mostly European magazines. A couple people liked it. A couple people said they like the one or two that were like, oh, it's not really sophisticated enough for the songs to be, what they are, and kind of gave it middling feedback. But then they got the reference points, so you know, what can you do?
You'd be
I
amazed at
hope.
how many reviews of people do of people who don't actually listen to the music that are on the records, which is a pretty interesting thing. But that's
Yeah,
a whole other story.
I'm not. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I whatever happens, I'm happy that the record's out, and I'm like incredibly appreciative of your time and also your very very nice feedback on it. I've played in a lot of bands. I've been on a bunch of records. I feel really really fortunate. Like every time I can just share some music with people, and it's always really nice to hear that people like what you're doing. So if there's room for it, that would be awesome. But I don't have any big expectations, I guess.
All right.
So, but again, thank you so much for all the nice words.
It's a record that I think immediately connected with, and I think for me sometimes those keys, the way that the keyboards and the guitars work together, it just draws me into stuff. So any plans for like shirts or any other kind of merch that you guys are going to do? Are you keeping it pretty low key to just the vinyl, which by the way is still available on Svart, and there's a color that's only 100, so vinyl nerds need to get on that immediately. But any other merch or anything else out there that people can go buy to support the band?
I made some shirts in the past, and I've got a few of them hanging around. But other than that, we haven't really made any. But I expect, next time we play a show, we'll have some shirts and things like that. But yeah, probably none of the like the lighters or the luggage tags or anything like that. Some bands have. Um,
There is a lot of merch and a lot of drug paraphernalia merch these days too.
that's
I'm
true.
finding as well. There's a lot of that. I get a lot of that in the mail, and I can only wonder what my mailman thinks if they actually
Sure.
saw what's in some of those packages. Um, but anyway, Chris, this has been amazing. The record, love it. Self-titled record, debut record, Bygone by Bygone. Go to Svart right now. U.S. distribution, that was always a challenge before, but there's a U.S. distribution site for Svart. Cheap shipping. Only 100 of the limited transparent yellow with black smoke vinyl. So go buy that. And Chris, just love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Please come back and talk to us. We could do I have an idea because we're going to do a Blue Oyster Cult show. We've been talking about a Blue Oyster Cult show with our buddy Rob, who is the Blue Oyster Cult guy. We would love to have you come on and do the Blue Oyster Cult show with us if you would
That
do
would
that.
be an honor. That is the people in my life. are sick of hearing me punish them about unreleased Blue Oyster Cult demos.
Oh, this is perfect then.
I could probably talk for 10 hours. I've been on at least one podcast about Blue Oyster Cult already, so I'm locked and loaded, and it would be an absolute pleasure. You know where to find me. So
yes, consider it done. We just have to lock down Rob, and this is going to happen. But anyway, I digress. Bygone, awesome, coming out on Friday the 12th. Go check it out. It'll be my number one on Doom charts for December, without a doubt. And thank you, Chris, and tell the rest of the band, hello from us, and that we love the record.
Wow, thank you so much, guys.
All right, thanks, Chris. Thank you so much.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.